Hi everybody, this is Oksana, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate for you how to make this little chain link connector using a bead. And so this can be used in a necklace or a bracelet. My most recent video that I did on a bracelet, I had shown another example of a bracelet in that video where there were little links just like that with a little bead. And so I got asked, well, how do you make those? So I thought I would make a little video on how to make a little link just like this. So if you want to see, then keep watching. So I'm starting out with some 20 gauge square copper wire, and you don't have to use square. You can definitely use round. It'll work just as well. And you don't have to use 20 gauge either. It just has to be thin enough to be able to get your bead onto it. So here's my little bead. Your bead just has to fit onto it. I probably wouldn't use anything much smaller than 20 gauge because you do want this to be sturdy, especially if this is going to be a link in a chain necklace or a bracelet. You want it to be somewhat sturdy. So I cut myself a little piece here that happens to be 3.5 inches. Now this is probably too long, but until you make your first one, it's kind of hard to tell. It's easier just to make your first one and then see how it works out, because you need the space here for the bead, and then you're going to make the little loops here on the end. And how much wire is needed for those really depends on what you use to make the little loops. I'm going to be making them with these round nose pliers, and if you make really little ones and you bend them around, you know, this portion down here, that's obviously going to use less wire. If you make them larger, like here, shape sized, then, you know, it'll need more wire. So I think it's, for me personally, it's easier just to kind of make one first and then go from there, knowing how much of everything I need. So this bead here, it's called a Mystic Aura quartz, and it is an 8mm bead. That's what it looks like. So I put it in just kind of roughly the middle. I'm trying to gauge that, and then I'm going to grab my wire and I'm going to bend it at a 90-degree angle. And now you can remove your bead temporarily if you'd like. So after you've done that, so our bead was right here. So with this little end, we're going to make the little loop. So if you want just a super tiny little loop, you can hold like this with your pliers and bend around there. If you want it a little bigger, you can kind of move it up. You can make a really big loop, like if this is going to be a clasp or something, you need a bigger little loop at the end here so that your closure for your clasp fits into it. You can make it nice and large. I'm going to just do in the middle here like this. And I'm going to bend it around my pliers, and I'm kind of moving it up so that I can keep bending. Like that. And now I'm bending it in this direction. And you can use your pliers to help you, especially if you're using a thick gauge and you're having trouble bending it by hand. So I'm going to take my pliers and just kind of press and grab. And press a little more. So what I did here is basically this wire wrapped all the way around once. Now you can keep going with this and wrap it several times, and so it's going to be a little bit of the wire wrapping, then it'll be your bead. Or if you want to keep it minimal, you can cut it at this point and have it just needs to go around at least once, you know, to just be closed and be secure. But then after that, it's up to you whether you trim it off. or wrap it a few more times. So I trimmed it. Here's my little end. The easiest thing for me to do is just to put it on my round nose pliers and then just grab the little end of it with my regular pliers and just kind of turn it, continue to turning it, you know, in the direction that it was supposed to be going, and just kind of almost squish it down. And then after you do that, just feel to make sure that the wire end is not sticking up. Here's what that looks like. Now if you want to hammer this slightly to make it stronger, especially if you had to use a thinner wire, like if you have a bead with a really small hole and you had to go down to 21 gauge, you can kind of hammer to make it a little stronger. So then you put your bead on. You will bend this at a 90-degree angle, but you want to give yourself just a little bit of room to do this little wraparound. So I'm grabbing it with my pliers, my Xuron needle nose pliers. So this way when I create the bend, there's that little bit of spacing right here. And that's going to allow us the space to do that little wrap. So now I'm just putting my pliers in here, trying to do it in the same kind of middle ground kind of spot. Bending this around, just in the same way that I had done this loop here, and now bending it around this way. And I'm just going to keep going with it. Now I'm going to trim this wire down. And with my pliers, I'm just going to continue with this little end, just continue kind of wrapping it around. You might have to turn it a little. Sorry, I'm trying to have it like face in the direction of the camera so you guys can see. But I'm just doing the same thing as I did up there. Squishing that down so that the little wire end is just pressed down in there. And that is it. And if these happen to not be lining up, like they're not both straight, you can just kind of fix it. Or maybe you need one of the loops to face the other way, in which case, you know, you turn it. It's totally up to you. I'm going to kind of flatten this loop a little bit with my pliers, just gently, because it was just slightly crooked. There we go. So that is it. That is my little loop, and there's just a tiny bit of space where the bead can kind of move up and down just ever so slightly. If you don't want that, you could have just kept wrapping, you know, just slightly more so the wire continues, so it doesn't give the bead any room at all. But here is what that looks like. So as always, all the information about my wire and bead size and how much wire I cut, all that stuff is going to be down below, my tools, all of that will be listed under the video, as well as my Facebook and Instagram and Patreon. So thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.